Ben, thanks very much for making the journey north for the podcast, mate. I truly appreciate you making this distance. How long did it take you to travel up?
Well, we came from sort of Manchester way, so it was probably about 3.5 hours to get up to Edinburgh, but we went up to the Marcus yesterday, so getting in that festive spirit before everything kicks off again.
No, I truly appreciate it. We talked about appearing on the podcast, and we could do it remotely, but you were kind of determined that you wanted to come in person, so it's a pleasure to meet you. I was first made aware of yourself during your Summit Attack charity challenge, which was the 3 Peaks challenge and the 482 mile run in between, which you smashed in 8 days, which is incredible. It still blows my mind. And then I made contact with you, lent some support. We discussed about coming onto the podcast, and we'll work through your physical achievements, which are amazing. But if we could go back to your childhood and your growing up, whether good or bad, tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you've achieved so far.
Yeah, definitely, David. I'd say so. My childhood, I'd say I had a very good upbringing. Obviously, I think my parents were pretty much spot on. I cannot fault them whatsoever. So that's a big shout out to Nick and Adette for raising me in the way they have done. But I think for me, growing up, the sort of turning point where my confidence came from was probably from when I used to play rugby. So I played rugby at a very young age, and I think from there, just sort of that camaraderie, being part of a team, like teamwork, that's where I started to get these sort of mental drives towards these physical challenges. I think all came from rugby. That's where my confidence was boosted. And then from there, so I was sort of finishing towards college. I didn't want to go to university, so for me, academic studies is a real struggle unless I really apply myself. I'm not one of these people that can just sort of sit down with a book and I can memorise everything. So for me, I had to really work hard. Not say I don't enjoy it, but I have to really sit down and do the revision. And then for me, that's where I sort of opted to go for like the military route. Just wanted to start earning money. I wanted to go away, travel the world. So first, initially, I put in for the paratroopers and then also the Marines. But luckily, the Royal Marines got back to me first. So I was quite happy.
There's always that rivalry there.
Yeah, there's always that rivalry. You always get it. But looking back on it now, I'm so glad it went the way it did. Yeah. And I didn't join the paratroopers. Not to say I'm not faulting them whatsoever, but I think the Royal Marines are just leaps and leaps ahead of them. So, but that was where my journey first started, and then it started the application process, which was pretty much a year-long process, going through like psychometric testing, doing like your initial fitness testing, and then you go down to Livingston. So that's where the heart of the Royal Marines training is at CTCRM, and did a 3-day course there where I remember getting off the train at Accrington, coming back home when Mum and Dad picked me up, and it was just, my body was absolutely battered. Never felt anything like it. Even when all the years I played for rugby, never felt like the next day. Really? Especially when you're young, you just bounce back, don't you? So,
So what age were you then, Ben?
So when I joined the Marines?
Yeah,
I was 19 years old, and I was absolutely clueless, and I still am today. Still absolutely clueless. But 19 years old, a young lad going through that sort of training, being independent, was a real sort of a shock to me initially. But managed to get work through the 32-week process. There was times, obviously, there was a lot of failure in that time. Yeah. But again, that's what makes you stronger, I think. And I bounced back, basically was retrooped, set back sort of 4 weeks for an ankle injury. So that was a real sort of low point in my sort of process through that Royal Marines training. And then passed out with 180 troop, and then that's where my journey started from then on. Brilliant. And then ever since then, I haven't really looked back. But it's a real arduous 32 weeks. And
I can imagine. Is it still one of the longest initial training courses in the world for any?
Oh yeah, it's 32 weeks. It's the longest basic military sort of training course there is that you can find. So,
and your inspiration for the military, did that come from any family members or any kind of role models out there, or was it just because you didn't feel that you wanted to apply yourself academically? It was all about basically fitness, and you wanted to earn some money in the military.
I think it was just a mixture of that. There was no real inspiration. My dad was in the Navy, my granddad was in the Army, so from sort of a family background, not really that military orientated, but for me, it was just to get out there, start earning money, sort of finding my way in life, travel the world, fitness at the time, as like any sort of young man does in the gym from an early age, and then playing rugby. So I think that was just a natural progression for me, just something that was going to test me both physically mainly, but also mentally as well. Just want to see what I could really sort of produce at the end of that 32 weeks, or get to the end and then earn that sort of that green beret. That's what every lad strives towards. Yeah, it means a lot.
Did you thrive on the discipline and structure? Was that did that suit your personality, or was it something? I
think so. Yeah, I think I was quite submissive in that way, being quite a young lad. I think I didn't know any different. I saw a lot of lads that sort of went through the process, a bit older, a bit more sort of streetwise, would really struggle with that sort of discipline and the authority that would be given from the instructors. So I think I kind of just accepted what it was, did as I was told, and that's how I got through, really.
And were you lucky enough to remain with your full troop?
No, so I started with 178 troop.
Right, okay.
So the troop numbers every sort of 2 weeks, depending on recruitment, and then I finished with 180. So I did I got an ankle injury on one of the exercises on one of the load carries, and then that sort of set me back 4 weeks then. And then I had to rejoin another troop and make new friends, which was again really difficult.
That would be tough.
Yeah, it was a good set of lads to finish with as well in the end.
So how long ago was that now? What age are you now?
So I'm 29 now, so that was still 10 years ago. 10 years ago in November it was, so a decade.
And that's a bit, it's fluent like that. It's offered some opportunity for you though.
Yeah.
As far as just what it allows you to do, travel the world, your training, and keep up with it. I take it you have no plans to give up? I'm
unsure. I'd sort of take each day as it comes, but don't get me wrong, it's like any job. There's always love-hate, and there's really great opportunities, like you say. Been all over the world, done some really cool stuff, especially like sporting tours, and also been away on big exercises, so like in Norway, Oman. So you can't really fault the job when it comes to them sort of opportunities that arise. Like there's always going to be sort of dull times, but them times really make up for all the rubbish times.
Definitely. So your roles within the Marines, a couple of years ago you were part of the recruitment team, taking recruits during their initial phase, is that correct?
Yeah, so sort of through that phase of my sort of career, it was taking the recruits through the basic sort of soldiering side of things. So I would have took him through the 32 weeks exactly as I went through, and a lot of my friends did, but it was quite funny to be on the sort of other side. You sort of see how the games are, it's basically just a big game, and if you can play it well, like exactly I did when I was 19 years old, sort of sitting there doing as you're told, not like answering back, that's exactly how you'll get through, and that's how you earn the respect of the instructors. And it's exactly the same being on the other foot. I'd say I'm a very firm but fair instructor. I believe now that this sort of level of instruction is far greater than it probably was, in terms of the recruits are more inclined to ask questions now, whereas before when I went through I was scared. Do you know what I mean? I was scared like a rabbit in the headlights. I wouldn't ask a question. If you didn't understand something, that was it. You didn't understand it.
So do you think that's a slight change in the culture of the training setup that you're actually encouraged to ask questions?
And I do think that's because, again, I've never been away operationally, so I think from that aspect it's a different way of instruction, because you've never been aware. Like all these instructors that took me through, they've obviously seen a lot of sort of challenging things that's testing them mentally, and again the small sort of thing can trigger things like the PTSD and stuff, but for me, I've never had that sort of experience, so I'm very sort of calm and collective in them situations, whereas they might struggle just because obviously they've seen. But it's definitely, I'd say, producing a better Marine at the end of the 32 weeks.
Oh, brilliant. Sure. As far as like the calibre of recruiters go, obviously the podcast is Remember Resilience, and we've spoke off camera that sometimes we get the feeling that the generation that's coming through now is maybe less resilient, although that probably is said by each generation about the kind of up and coming. Do you feel that because you've been on both sides, as far as being a recruit yourself and then leading recruits through their training phase, do you think there is a distinct difference in the kind of the mental robustness and physical robustness of the recruits that are coming through in today's modern world? Or do you think that the Marines only attract the ones that actually really want to progress?
I think it's definitely a good mixture of, don't get me wrong, you do get quite a lot of resilient recruits coming through. Again, it varies on age. Like you could have the youngest recruit in the troop, he could still be the most resilient. It's completely just random, but I definitely would say that it's something that's sort of been lost in this new generation. I think it's not their fault. I think it's just the way society is these days. I think everything's so focused on electronics and sort of shying away, being in your room, playing on your PlayStation or your Xbox or whatever, not getting outside, doing stuff like just climbing a tree, falling off a tree, hurting yourself and realising what that pain feels like. And I think again, especially seeing it in that instructor role where people come up to me and they ask, I've got pain in my knee, it could just be like a slight bit of fatigue, but they'd never experienced that before, being a young kid, falling out of trees, hurting himself, grazing the knees, playing football, whatever it may be. Like, they've never had that experience because they've been in the room sheltered. So I think them sort of guys coming through, or even females now, really struggle with that because they've not been experienced to it. It's not their fault, but it's just the way it is these days.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are just not exposed to suffering enough. Both kind of mostly physical, like you said. The younger generation, you don't see a lot of kids out running about with their pals, climbing trees, playing footballs with jumpers for goalposts or whatever else. Yeah. They're all playing online, but whatever latest kind of games console there is, and there is that kind of lack of. It's actually good to suffer. It's good to be in pain, and your body builds on it, your mind builds on it, and then for the next time you've reached that new threshold, and that just keeps on going and going and going. Obviously, a number of years ago, the British Forces changed the rules for female entrants, and where, correct me if I'm wrong, they can apply to join all sections of the armed forces, the Royal Marines and the Paras and stuff included. Has there been any females that have successfully passed the basic training, and if not, then why do you think that is?
So, well, like you said, I think it was since 2018, that's when females could join the Royal Marines specifically. I think prior to that, they could obviously join things like the Royal Navy, the Army, the RAF, but 2018 was the day, that's when officially females could join. And from what I've seen, being down at Limstead, I've only seen one or two that have sort of got into the actual main training phase, but I've really struggled, unfortunately, because of the weight bearing. Right. I'd definitely like to see it, and I think it would be healthy for the Royal Marines to see that female sort of counterpart coming in, but at the minute I don't think it's going to happen for quite a while. It's going to take someone real tough to do it, I think. Mentally, I think they definitely got it. It's just that physical aspect of carrying weight. That's where they're going to struggle, especially as it gets towards the sort of back end of training, when you've got the longer, more arduous sort of loaded carries and things like the assault course. They're going to struggle with just carrying the weight and running with weight. Right,
so take away the weight, the kind of admin side, the endurance side, and the kind of mental robustness side, that's all there.
Oh, 100%, yeah. Like the females that I've been through, in terms of the sort of administration, I've spoke to the training teams that have taken them through and stuff, and they've said that they're leaps and leaps ahead of some of the guys in the troop, do you know what I mean? In terms of administration, making sure that everything's clean and tidy, they're just all over it completely. And I'd definitely say on an emotional level as well, I think they're far more mature than what probably blokes are. Yeah. So I think in terms of that, the mental robustness, I think they've definitely got the stuff to do it. I think it's just
the physiology.
It's just a physiology, and it's not their fault. Again, it's just the way that sort of males and females are designed to sort of manoeuvre weight and stuff. So hopefully we do see it in the near future. I think it will be very healthy. It'll be a great opportunity for them, and also the Royal Marines as well to see that come through.
I think I've had a good few really accomplished female athletes on the podcast so far, and it's amazing, and actually opens your eyes to how close male and females are when it comes to their commitment and their mental robustness and their physical robustness as well. But like you say, it's the load bearing aspect that is holding females back when it comes to the Marines. I take it the standard is just the same. It's never changed.
Yeah, the standard's never changed. I think the training, it might seem like the standard's changing, but it's definitely not, because like I said before, the level of instruction I think is definitely improved. Like, it's still got that element of discipline, but the standard's still the standard, and if the standard's not met, then unfortunately you cannot carry on for the training. That's the way it is, and it's the way it should always be. Right, I think as soon as the standard changes, that's when people will start to have problems.
Yeah,
I think
definitely.
Since sort of 2018, when females were allowed to join the Royal Marines, I think everyone's been quite it's been well received from people. But I think as soon as you start to tweak things, change training, that's when people get a bit bitter about it. Because we've all been through the same process. Yeah. We want it to be the same for everyone. That's the only way it can be.
I think you're right. In any kind of workplace, and I suppose like your profession is a workplace, at the end of the day, the vast majority of people don't care what their colleague looks like, what gender they are, what sexuality they are. They literally don't care, as long as they can all do the same job and potentially go to war together. Yeah. Then that's it. You know. Moving on from that, obviously you are taking recruits through the initial phases of training, and I think it was around about a year ago you qualified as Royal Marines physical training instructor.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
So how's that been for you? That must have been a brutal course. Was that not like a kind of a strange feeling being back to being a recruit almost again?
Yeah, I definitely had that feeling of sort of the fear constantly. Yeah. So that was 17 weeks long, probably pretty much a year. that I've sort of passed and joined the sort of PT staff. But that 17-week course, again, there was a lot of failures. Yeah. And I'm not afraid to admit that, like everyone else failures. And I think that's where, for me, that was just going to help me drive further forward. Wasn't going to stop me. But that was the whole point of it. And I was with a great bunch of lads. We started with 10. Unfortunately, lost 4 of them guys through professional failures from failing sort of circuits or physical tests. So we lost 4 guys and we finished with 6. But some of the fittest guys I've ever met, like we've all got our own strengths. Like for me, running's like my bag. It's always been my bag. But there's other lads that are better at swimming or like short, sharp interval stuff. It's amazing to see, and it spurs you on even more, being the sort of rear of the pack on certain elements of the fitness.
And then jumping forward and all elements.
Exactly that, and everyone spurs each other on. And
so I'm interested to know a bit, but take us through, like, obviously it's 17 weeks, but take us through kind of some of the assessments, or even like what a kind of, not that it would necessarily be a standard day, but what a day during that course would look like.
So for us, the first sort of 6 weeks of that 17-week course, it was the gym phase. So we went back into the gymnasium. So that's a lot of focus stuff on, do a lot of rope climbing. And again, for me, that was something I always struggled with. And I did the Acquaint back in 2020, and I failed because of that. Because I thought, I did rope climbs in training, I was absolutely fine, but it's a whole new ball game when you're under fatigue, when you've gone for the camp circuit, so when you've done like an 800 metre effort, straight into a rope climb, your heart rate's through the roof, and it's not enjoyable whatsoever. So we had the 6 weeks, the first phase, which was all like in the gym again, and then we had the thing called the gym pass out at the end. So it's a series of exercise, body weight stuff, a lot of rope climbs, camp circuits, and then you had to meet the mark for that. Once we passed that, we transition onto the bottom field phase, so that's down the assault course. And then we progress the weight up and up to the point where you're carrying sort of 21 pounds in a weapon system, and that's in boots. You basically got to do the assault course, around the assault course in 5 minutes, 1 rope climb, you do a 200 metre fireman's carry, and then you have to do a thing called a regain over the top of the tank, which is like a big pool of water, and you have to do that twice through. And then we transitioned into the commando phase where we did the Commando Test. But on top of that, in like the afternoons, we've still got a series of like lectures to learn. We've got things called strengtheners, where like one day we did 2K raw best effort just randomly. And every second over that 7 minute mark, so 7 minute mark was the aim for the 2 kilometres distance, we had to do a length in the tank. So one guy did sort of 7:52, so he had 52 lengths to do at the end of a day. So we had the gym period in the morning, and then the row in the afternoon, and then that on top as well. It's it's real mentally challenging stuff.
No, definitely. So the commando test you redo, and do you need to do them in a faster time than what the recruits would do?
So there's not, on terms of the criteria testing, like for the times are exactly the same as it would be for training, but you're expected, because if you're going to lead from the front, you need to produce some really good times. And again, there's obviously times where I was nowhere near the fastest, but then other times I was close to the top. Like that's the beauty of it, and it's what spurs you on. So the test, again, it was good to relive them memories, even though I've done them prior when I've obviously been in recruit training myself. It's good to go back and relive that sort of time again. You feel like you're going through the whole journey again, regaining that green lid.
Do you think that's been one of your kind of proudest moments, passing out as far as a PTI instructor?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think just, again, it's one of sort of like a demon that I had to face, like obviously failing back in 2019. I was like, I couldn't think of anything else more suited to me. And accompanied with the instructor role, like prior doing the training teams, I think for me it was just the ideal job for me. So it's a great opportunity.
Is that still what you do now?
Yeah, so now I've finished my time at CTC.
Right.
So I'm going to Stamford Hall in Loughborough to do my exercise rehabilitation instructors course.
Right, okay.
So I'll start in January, so that's 6 months long, and then I will go back to CTC, a place called Parker Hall, where they do the rehab for all the sort of injured recruits who've got some serious injuries, then try and get them to return back to training. So again, hopefully that opens some opportunities for me. I'm sure it will do, and hopefully give me some good qualifications as well moving forward. Yeah,
definitely. It sounds amazing, but it's just you can't let your fitness go.
No,
do you know what I mean? That's one of the good things. You're forced. Your job depends on you keeping keeping like supremely fit.
Exactly,
do
yeah.
you know, and as long as you enjoy that, then it's a great
passion
way to
of mine, so it's something I don't think I'm ever going to let go to the point where I can't go anymore.
You can't go, the body will just not take you. We're going to come on to there's a few points when the body can't take you. But obviously moving from your kind of fitness in your life within the workplace, taking that into your fundraising charity work, which is like, it's got to be commended. You've done some amazing things, which we're about to get on to. Tell us a bit about the two charities, which is one is the Royal Marines charity and two is mental health charity called Mind. Why those charities, and is there any connection or any kind of link to them?
So I think for the Royal Marines charity, it kind of speaks for itself. Like, obviously being a serving member of the Royal Marines still, it's a charity that's very, very close to my heart, and it's a very supportive charity. I think, especially going through a lot of my fundraising stuff, they've always been there in terms of promoting it or just helping wherever they could, whether that be from the smallest thing like giving me a t-shirt to wear or a banner at the end of the finishing of the challenge. But the Royal Marines charity, I think, are a very supportive charity, not only just for serving members of the Royal Marines, but also ex-serving as well. I think they do a lot for families that have experienced a lot of sort of hardship and that are struggling. And I think that's super important to, again, just to emphasis, just to try and generate as much awareness for that sort of stuff as well. And that kind of links into sort of the mind stuff as well. And I think, especially for blokes, it's very difficult. You probably know yourself, to speak about how you feel, and it's a very difficult thing. We're sort of taught to just suck it up and just crack on with it and get on with it. And I think, especially for a sort of a male perspective, that's why I'm very drawn to it as well. Don't get me wrong, it's still the same for females as well, but I think females are, like I said before, they're more emotionally intelligent, they're more in touch with their sort of their feelings, so they can express these things. But blokes, I think they really struggle with it. So I think that's why it ties in nicely with the sort of Romans charity as well. They've always done stuff for mental health or sort of suicide awareness again, because I know guys that have been through that sort of roller coaster as well, and they've come out the other side a lot better. Yeah,
that's what I was going to say. Is there any kind of personal link to whether you've experienced those problems yourself, or close family or friends or colleagues? Yeah,
100%. Like, I think there's been points where I've struggled, and I think that's what spurs me on to do these challenges as well, because when I'm in these sort of dark places where I'm really struggling, really hurting, I just kind of think back to the times where I was thinking not very clearly, and I think that I was struggling to discuss things. I think it's really important to, again, everyone sort of shares them personal experiences in some way or another. But that's obviously the reasons why I chose them charities, and I probably will continue to support them charities because they've always been there. I know Mind is a lot bigger than what the Royal Marines charity is, so in terms of support, it's not always the same because there's a lot of people doing fundraising, but that's just the nature of the beast.
That's the thing with bigger charities. There's so many people doing, which is great, but they can't give the same level of support to everyone. So run us through a few things that you've done. I've got a wee list that I made up during the research, and I was looking at the Christmas pain cave. Actually, I was drinking my coffee and nearly spat it out because you tell the story. You tell the story, Ben, because it sounds horrendous.
I named it the Christmas pain cave again. So that was for Papyrus. I did it. That was the suicide awareness charity. So that was over the Christmas period. So again, I think because of the Christmas time, it's a very difficult time for a lot of people. A lot of people aren't as fortunate as probably you and I, who've got families and stuff, and they're on their own. And again, it plays into that mental health piece. So I think that was why I supported that charity so much in this event. But the inspiration came from, I can't take full credit for it, by the way, came from Ollie Marchand. Aware of Ollie Marchand, and he came up with the idea, but I tweaked it slightly. So it was a marathon distance on the ski erg. Then it was into marathon distance on the assault bike, and then finishing a marathon distance around a running track. So that was like 106 laps of a running track. And that was on Christmas Eve as well.
Christmas Eve. I was going to say, please don't tell me it was like Christmas Day, but Christmas Eve is just
all in all, that was in one day. So 7 hours it took me, roughly about 7 hours.
That's crazy fast, though.
Yeah, and
I couldn't even run a marathon in 7 hours.
Yeah, so the marathon I think was about 3.5 hours. I think around a running track. But
and that was last after doing a marathon. But
that was my most comfortable piece, I think, in terms of the three elements. I think the furthest I'd ever skied on a ski erg was 10,000 metres in preparation for it. But you think about it's like 42,000 metres on a ski erg, and then into the assault bike. I'd say the assault bike was the worst.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. The assault bike, I probably choosing out of the three, the assault bike would probably be my favourite.
Yeah.
the ski erg would be torture. I hit 250 metres on that. It's just like, oh, it's game over.
I think the assault bike was the hardest because even though I was on the shortest time, it was an hour and a half on there. It was it was just mind-numbing, absolutely mind-numbing. People feeding me sort of food along the side as I'm just sort of pedalling along.
That's what I was going to say. So what was the setup? Were you the sole competitor, if you like, doing this challenge? Or was there a couple of you?
So I had people jumping in from gym back home, people jumping in supporting me, doing like little stints with me. And especially on the running track, it was quite nice. And quite a big crowd around the local running track, and people jumped in, did a few laps with me. So that was really good to see that sort of community spirit, especially going into Christmas. So this was coming towards like the back end of COVID as well. So it was everyone was experiencing difficult times. Yeah. So I think people just needed that sort of that community spirit.
Oh, definitely get out and about and support someone. Definitely. So on Christmas Day, you must have just had the best Christmas day.
So Christmas Eve, I really struggled. I think whenever I do any form of like endurance stuff, my stomach just shrinks and my appetite's very low. Yeah. But Christmas Day, it was 2 Christmas dinners, you name it, all the pudding, all the beer. There was no calorie count.
No, definitely not. Reward yourself. And talking about COVID, like during COVID, you done the Two Moors Way. Yeah.
So Two Moors Way route. That was from Wembury Beach in Plymouth all the way to the top of Lynmouth Bay, so basically the bottom half of the UK. It's called the Two Moors Way. It's a 117-mile route. I did that in Awana. So that was 29 hours. I did that, and again, I had a really good team with me. I had guys from work and stuff, and we managed to sort of get a van that we could utilise, and then they met me sort of 10 miles sort of increments of checkpoints. And that was, I think I learned a lot about myself on that, and that's where I really started getting into my ultra running. The last 5 miles, I was starting to like sort of see things on the ground. So
I was going to say, I mean, obviously, like, what do you focus on when you're maybe lucky enough for a certain part, your mind wanders and you can switch off and you're literally on autopilot. Your legs are just going one foot in front of the other, but you're going to hit some like proper holes then.
Yeah,
like,
some what really keeps dark you times. Going? But again, I did that. That was for the Royal Marine Charity, so I think. I had people jumping in who just sort of came randomly, and they'd be like, Ben, like you've hit £3,000 on your sort of Just Giving page, and that I was sat in the seat just sort of thinking, as I was eating my pot noodle, thinking like I want to stop. But hearing that from somebody, how can you turn that down and sort of say that's it? I'm wrapping now. I'm giving up.
Yeah, I think when you do any physical, especially when it's like, I'm not disrespecting anyone that does smaller challenges, when it's major challenges like yourself, to do it for a purpose, whether that be a loved one or a charity, you're still doing it for love, and it does change what you can push yourself through, because it gives you perspectives to think about. No matter what you're going through at that point in time, the people or the person or the charity that you're doing that work for, they've been or going through worse.
Far worse,
and as long as you can keep a wee section of your mind on that reason, then you're going to keep on going, unless it's like a major injury or something like
exactly
that. Was that how did you find that? Have you done something similar since?
Since that challenge?
Yeah, like an all day. Man, it's I don't even know what you call that. It's far beyond an ultramarathon.
So sort of prior to that, my sort of ultra running career started with a 100 miler, so I pretty much went from marathon straight up to 100 miler. So I did Chester 100 miler in 2018, and that was sort of 24 hours and 33 minutes, I think it was, bang on the money. But again, that's where once I finished that, it just gives you that perspective of like, yes, that was hard and I struggled with it, but I have much more to give. And that's how it sort of progressed through the years of the sort of challenges that I did. So doing that sort of ultra events prior to that, I knew that it was capable of doing the 117 miles, but with the added sort of elevation, running through the darkness as well, these are things that are going to really push you to your limits. And don't get me wrong, like, I'm human. There's going to be points where I'm like, I want to quit. My body's hurting, my knee's starting to go, whatever it may be. But I think as long as you get in your head as well, the thing with ultra endurance events, it's just an eating contest, and that's one thing I'm good at, is eating. Anyone can vouch for me there. Like, I'll just eat, and as long as your stomach stays intact and your feet and your mind, like, you're unstoppable.
You can still feel
unstoppable.
To go. Did you find so? Did you jump straight from a marathon distance to a 100-mile distance?
Yeah, pretty
much. How did you find that? Because that is like a no-go in the ultra running world, as far as like that you're quadrupling your distance.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Most people would say that, you need to build up to a 50 mile or 60, 70, whatever else. Did you find the jump massive, or was it maybe better than expected?
So in terms of the training, I think it's really difficult to simulate that sort of distance. You couldn't just go out and say, for instance, on a Sunday where you normally do your long run and be like, okay, I'm going to do an 80 mile, 100 mile. You could do, but in terms of on like the amount of stress it's going to put your body and your mind as well, it's just not feasible going into the next week of training. So I've kind of skinned it exactly the same as I would do for a marathon. Almost like cuffed it to a certain extent. So I've just give it a go, because I knew that my base level of fitness would probably get me there, and my mindset would definitely get me there. So I always had that self-belief that I was going to do it. So it was never out of the question that I was not going to finish it. But it's just how graceful you want to finish it. I think that's the difference in putting training. It's exactly the same for my Summit Challenge, which I'm sure we'll come on to.
Yeah, definitely.
I trained exactly the same as I would do for a marathon. No different. We're talking max 70 mile weeks, where in the ultra running community is like unheard of. You need to be pushing beyond the 100 mile sort of weekly mileage to even get anywhere close to completing a 100 miler. But
so did you know that you had that in the tank, and you were just saving it for that day?
100%. I think just knowing that I was going to finish it, no matter what, it's just like you said, one step in front of the other, and you'll get to the end eventually. It's got to end, surely. As
far as like physique goes for ultra runners, obviously you're a well built, muscular guy. Do you find that a lot of the fastest ultra runners are still very slight? They've got very low body fat, very low muscle size. Do you find that kind of your strength training helps your recovery and your injury prevention as far as that goes? Yeah,
definitely. I'd definitely say for a majority of my challenges, the strength and condition element is the thing that probably saved me. The robustness. Again, just going through Roman's training, I think that mindset and just being pushed where your body's like can't go anymore, that's definitely helped me for these events and stuff. And I'd definitely say the strength and conditioning element. Even that's just doing it doesn't have to be heavy squats or lunges, whatever it may be. Just moving in sort of planes of motion is what's going to help you. Because when it comes to trail running, that's all you are doing is moving in different planes of motion. I'm not the most graceful runner. I don't even probably ever see me run. Probably the worst efficiency you've ever seen. More of a shuffle than anything. But I think there's that level of not knowing when to quit that's what sets me apart from people. So I think just doing weights as well on the side is just it's a sort of a confidence piece again, just maintaining that size. I don't want to be a lot slighter. If I wanted to be faster, yes, I'd have to lose a bit of timber.
But you need to do what you enjoy as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you know what I mean? If you enjoy weight training and you enjoy other elements, then you need to do that as well. But you're not just built for endurance; you're built for speed as well. Because I'm just looking at your 10k in 34 minutes, and I think that's not much slower than my best 5k. So 10k 34 minutes, best marathon time. 2 hours,
so
44.
London Marathon this year. It was 2 hours 44 and 33.
And you can run a 10 miler in well under an hour.
Yeah, 57:45.
That's impressive.
Yeah,
well done. No, it's crazy. Hats off to you, because endurance, I can go slowly for a long period of time, put speed into it. No thanks. I'll work on it though. So let's go to the main event. So this is the one that I can't even remember, but someone tagged me in it or sent me it on Instagram not long after I had done a charity challenge, and you just get every so often a challenge pops up and you think, fuck, that's crazy. Especially because I'm into the hills as well. I enjoy the hills. I'm up there a lot. But tell us your reasoning and your why for your
this is the big one, the daddy. So the idea came into my head. It was sort of, I wanted to do something bigger and better than I'd done before. So obviously, as we spoke before about perspective and finishing something and being like, do you know what, there's more to give here. Mentally, I'm drained, but I can still push forward. So I was thinking about things I could do and something that'd be a bit different that no one's really sort of embarked on. There's a few people that have done it, but I just wanted to see if I could be the fastest. I got the idea from a guy called Alex Stanforth. He's from, I'm sure you're aware of him.
I chat to him. He's very supportive
really
guy.
Nice guy.
Really nice guy. He's got time for everybody.
Yeah, and that was one of the biggest things I felt with Alex. He was, I asked him the question because I've obviously seen that he did it back in 2020, and I was just like blown away by it. I was like, he became my instant new role model, and I messaged him on Instagram and I was just like, he might not respond. He's fairly popular in the sort of Lake District. He's well renowned and stuff. Obviously a sponsored athlete. I didn't think he'd get back to me, and he did. And he was like, I was like, can we have a Zoom chat? And he had a Zoom chat with me, and he discussed all the points, the sort of mistakes he'd made, learning points. And the one thing that stuck with me was like, make sure you get a camper van or a motorhome, somewhere you can stay, because he was just sort of beg stealing and borrowing from people. Okay. And it was through the COVID period, so everyone was a bit sort of reluctant in terms of distance from each other. But he was like, make sure you get a motorhome, make sure you have a good support crew. And then from there on, that's where it started. And I was like, how am I going to do that? So how I pitched it, I needed someone who was going to be there throughout. Managed to get myself a motorhome. And I was like, who better than my mum and dad? So I said to mum and dad, brilliant, we'll treat it as a family holiday. That's what I said to them. It was far from that, as you can imagine, and other people that support me will say otherwise. But I said, we'll treat it as a family holiday. Can you support me? Initially started out for the 10 days it was. And so I had my dedicated support crew there that was going to be there. And I had guys from work I used to work with, very like well-accomplished athletes themselves, people that have done like Ironmen, like ultra runners, just really robust and genuinely fit guys jumped in, and I was pretty much running the entire time with somebody by my side. And Alex Stanford joined me when we got to Lake District, and that was really brilliant. It was like a dream come true. I met my sort of hero, my short-term hero. He's such
an unassuming, gentle guy.
Yeah, such a gentle giant, and it was good to just chew the fat with him. We were just chatting away as we were running through sort of Amble side, that about like, he was asking me questions about like the gym and strength and conditioning element, and I was asking him about, obviously he's miles more efficient, better runner than I am, and it was good to just spin dits with each other and chat away. But he was really supportive. But yeah, so he had the idea to run pretty much the National Three Peaks, but in between each one of them. So I started at Ben Nevis and then made our way down to Scafell and then finally onto Snowdon. But aiming to do about 50 miles each day. And after the first day, I was sort of like, how's this even possible? Sat in the caravan at 5 o'clock in the morning with my 2 porridge pots. Like that my mum would just made me and just be like, oh, I've got to do this again today.
I know. I was just thinking, just to clarify for people that are listening that maybe don't know what we mean by a Three Peaks Challenge. So it's the highest mountain in Scotland, England and Wales, and most people attempt it in 24 hours driving the distance. And obviously Ben ran the almost 500 miles in between. But how did you route it? Did you do that yourself?
So I got the route from Alex. He gave me in the GPX format, so I could put onto like my GPS watch. And again, the majority of that was quite a lot of roads as well. Yeah. And I remember speaking to him, he really struggled on aspects of the roads, where I came from a sort of road running background. I think, again, just that constant pound on the pavement, my sort of joints.
He's more trails.
He's more trails, yeah. So he, on the route as well, there was sort of times where I would detour to opt for the sort of road, which was much quicker. Yep. And he'd go for the more trail to sort of save his legs. But it sounded like at points he had a really difficult time. He was telling me as we were running along, but he was just so supportive, and again, it was just nice to see a familiar face. But at the same time, another guy called Matt Peacock, I'm sure are you aware of him?
Was he doing it over a longer distance? Longer time? Sorry.
So he started about sort of a week before me, but he was walking the distance, which I think is still very, very commendable. And again, I think he spent a lot more time on feet. Yeah. And it was good to see. It was good to chat to him as well. He's
I think I maybe seen that. I maybe seen it at the time when when I was following your story.
And I managed to catch him up. I was like joking. I was like, I'll see you in a few days, mate. Caught him up, and again, he was. It was just great to see people like-minded people that are just insane and just want to give these crazy challenges a go. Like it's.
So how did you find? Like, had you done Ben Nevis before?
I'd done all 3 of the peaks before, yeah.
So they're not challenging in themselves, but obviously your clock starts at the bottom.
Yeah, at the bottom. Basically start at the campsite at the bottom, Ben Nevis, and then from there it was just onwards. But just go for it. I think when it comes to the mountains, I think you've got to respect them. I think, especially Snowdon, that was probably terrible conditions, but it had to be. That was the ultimate test, and I wouldn't change it for the world. So the last day was 50 miles to the base of Snowdon. And then the weather was okay. It was clear, a little bit windy. But as soon as we got to the base of Snowdon, that's when the clag came in, the rain came in. That was it. It was the ultimate test. I'd already been going 10 odd hours, and it was just to the top and down.
Just that final hurdle.
It was that final hurdle, and it was beautiful because that's how I wanted it to be. Yeah. Pretty much the entire time I had on the journey, the weather was pretty much spot on.
Oh, good.
Pretty much sunshine or clear, apart from the first day, but I was super keen the first day. And then Snowdon the last day, where I was like, do you know what, this is it now. Let's get this done.
Do you think, obviously you touched on the end of the first day when you're sitting there in your camper van, probably with your head in your hands, did you ever think fuck it, I've maybe bitten off more than I could chew.
Yeah,
Did you?
every single day.
Really?
Yeah.
There was just, well, it would have been a challenge otherwise, I suppose. Did you hit some proper dark points?
I hit some really dark places, especially, so when I came down from Scarfell, so the second peak, run through Ambleside, got on the other side, sort of had my headphones in my own little world, just doing my thing. And then I remember just coming to one of the checkpoints and I just burst into tears, and I couldn't explain why. Yeah. I just wanted to stop. I was like, I'm giving up, I'm done. And luckily Ash, the ultra runner that came from Australia we were talking about before, he was like, I'll jump in with you, Ben, we'll go for a little bimble together. We'll do another 20 miles together. And he sort of calmed me down and brought me back down to reality. So I had some amazing people like join me with it. And
I think sometimes when you get to that level of fatigue and exhaustion and pain, tiredness, to the point where you're in tears, it's a good thing. Yeah, it's almost like a reset. Yeah, you need that built up emotion. It just needs released, and then once you've got shot of it, you've hopefully got family or friends to pick you up. Yeah, and then it's time to go again. Yeah, do you know what I mean? There's no shame in that.
Oh, there's no shame at all, and I'm not afraid to admit that. And I think it definitely restored my faith in humanity and that people are giving and supportive. Which there's
we touched off camera as well. There's a lot of good people out there. It's easy to get caught up in the world of social media and everybody posting their highlights, and 99% of it is bullshit. Do you know? Exactly. But one thing it is good for is highlighting the good that people are doing. I mean, you're doing that to prove stuff to yourself, but you're also inspiring other people, becoming a role model yourself. Definitely, you've well achieved that. But you're also raising money and awareness for the charities that are close to your heart. Exactly. And I don't think you're going to stop.
No.
Definitely not. I'm sure we'll get on to that.
And again, it goes back to that piece of perspective. Now I'm like, yes, that was horrendous. Like I struggled many times, and it was never easy. And there was times that I really enjoyed, like strangely, but now I'm just thinking towards sort of 2024, what can I do that's bigger and what's better? What's going to shock the world and inspire?
That's it. You can't go back the way.
Yeah, but it's hard to think of stuff, but I'm sure I will
definitely.
do.
No, you will do. And you've got a lot of strings to your bow. It could be speed, it could be endurance, it could be strength. Do you know, whatever you're going to, you need to enjoy it. You need to enjoy it as well. So, do you think that that 50 mile each day, every day, was the ultimate test your body's had so far?
Definitely, yeah.
How did it cope?
So, again, going back to the strength and conditioning piece, I think that's definitely the element that saved me, that robustness. But there was a point, especially going through the northwest, where I went through Warrington. I don't know if you saw it. I had to put a knee cast on. My knee was giving me it was a real sharp pain, and all of a sudden it just sort of subsided. I managed to get like a roadside MOT. Some guy came out, some really helpful guy, did a sports massage on me.
Brilliant.
For the last day, which I think saved me in reality, and even just sort of like a placebo effect. But my body was just in bits. Waking up every day was a real struggle. You could see waking up at 5 o'clock just to have even my breakfast, getting off the top bunk on the camper van was a real struggle. But I knew as soon as I put my trainers on, started plodding away the first few miles, I'd get into a bit of a rhythm. Like I said, I always had people with me, so people chatting away, taking my mind off the pain, and almost it just becomes numb and you kind of forget about it. And then I think about all the other hard times that I've had, and I'm like, they're nowhere near close to that, like how I am now. So I can do it. Just one step in front of the
other. Did you have like a set routine every day? Did you aim to finish for a set time and start at a set time?
So I think as soon as I accepted the fact that I was going to be running for at least 10, 11 hours each day, I think I was just, that's it. That's what we're doing now. I aim to sort of finish before sort of 7 o'clock, because then I can get my recovery in. Like I've said before, in terms of like my stomach shrinking, my appetite wasn't the greatest. I'm usually a big like gluttonous pig usually, but like end of the day, I didn't feel like eating, but I knew that was the most important thing, to get like your stretching in, and then again making sure you get the necessary fuel for the next day. Just eating everything basically. So as long as I was finishing before it got dark, I could get that recovery in before stepping off the next day.
That was you.
That was me on my journey. Another day. Here we go.
What about blisters?
What's that? Sorry,
blisters.
Nothing.
Fine.
Not a single blister.
That was what was worrying me. I was like, oh man, I hope the blisters just
I had really good socks, and Ash made a really good point, the ultra runner from Australia. He said the pillar of ultra running, he said there's 3 things. He was like, your mind, your feet and your stomach. If you can keep them 3 things intact, like, you're unstoppable.
I think the stomach thing I can totally resonate with. my appetite closed. See, during that Ben Nevis challenge, I just couldn't eat. It was torture. I could drink, and then the people with us, the kind of coach that was there, they were like, Davey, you need to eat.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm just going to be sick.
Yeah.
It's such a strange thing that you know that your body needs that fuel, but you just don't want to put it. You're basically force feeding yourself.
Yeah.
It's really, really tough to be able to keep.
I was going to ask you on that. What was in terms of your training for that? How did you even begin to start with that?
For mine, so the training for that was 6 months. So the initial 3 months was all gym based. A lot of obviously strength and conditioning work. A lot of single leg work, because at each moment there was my weight, 105 kilos, 100 kilos on the bar. There was 205 kilos on each ankle.
Yeah,
and taking that step on a single ankle. So there was a lot of split squats and weighted step ups and stuff. And the gym part of it I enjoyed, but I couldn't wait to get outside. So my first kind of weighted walk was just like a 5k flat trail, relatively flat trail, with 30 kilograms on the bar, and I was fucked after it. See, not cardio wise, but see my shoulders and my back and whatever else. And I remember saying to the wife, I was like, I've got like 8 weeks.
Yeah.
To put over 3 times the weight on this.
Yeah.
But she was like, just keep on going.
Yeah.
And then the weight steadily increased. Final 2 months we were out in the hill, we'd done different Monroes with varying weights from 65, 75, 80, 85, 95 kilos. And then I'd done a couple of shorter walks where we overloaded with 105 and 112 kilos. And that was more mental. Yeah. Because I thought, if I can walk up a hill, albeit smaller, with 12% more weight, then I can keep on going for longer with the less weight.
And my next question is, how did you get it back down? Did you just roll it down?
There's a lot of people said that. No, like literally the only thing I carried down was my walking poles.
Nice.
So the guys that were there, they were mountain rescue colleagues, and they were all, you needed fit people with you. Yeah. So during a rest, they were luckily strong enough and tall enough to lift the bar, lift the bar off, put it down, because if they were stripping the plates off, it would have just been more time. And then obviously it was good to go again. The 4 of them could lift the bar on top, and away you go. And then at the end they just split the.
You only rested the once though, didn't you?
Of course, I was quick
for water, and that was you on your journey to the top.
I got to the point where it was like every 2 or 3 minutes. I just kind of go. You'll be the same. Sometimes you got a good stretch, and then other times you just couldn't go. It was the strangest feeling. Walking for so little distance and so little time in your heart.
Yeah, just going
nuts, out of breath. Yeah, it was kind of like, this is what old people must feel walking up the stairs. Do you know what I mean? That is something that's like that. Anyway, back to you. So £17,000. Yeah, that's amazing.
So that was split between the 2 charities, between the Royal Marine Charity and mine charity. So that was amazing. Brilliant. About money to raise for them, such great causes. And
I seen just recently that your endeavours have been officially recognised.
Yeah, it was a really nice way to sort of finish the year as well. I managed to get the award from Bear Grylls, so it was the Bear Grylls Unsung Hero Award, which was for my endeavours for sort of charity, but also the work I've done as a PTI as well. Brilliant. So it was an amazing opportunity to meet, obviously, big Bear Grylls, a really big sort of role model of mine, again, with all sort of physical endeavours and stuff. But yeah, that was just the icing on the cake for me for this year. So yeah, it was a really great way to finish 2023.
It's nice to get that recognition. Yeah, do you know it is, and it spurs you on.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? So what's the plans? What's next?
What for next year?
Yeah.
So I haven't actually thought of what I'm going to do, but I think sort of in the pipeline it's going to be a series of different challenges.
Right. Okay.
So far I've got the Bob Graham.
Right, okay.
That in, but the double Bob Graham.
Yep. So tell us about it, because some people.
So the Bob Graham in the Lake District, you start from Keswick, and it goes over sort of some of the sort of more well-renowned sort of peaks. So it's a 64-mile route with 27,000 feet. I think the record's like 12 hours and 30 minutes, but I'll be nowhere near that. But I want to do it twice round, so it'll be 132 miles and about 54,000 feet. So that'll just be one of them, and then I'll probably do John O'Groats to Land's End, just cycle that one. But then I need to think of a few other little components to fit the pieces.
And are these spread throughout the year?
These will be spread throughout the year. I've got London Marathon coming up in sort of April time, aiming for a sort of sub 240 on that one. So that's going to take a lot of training. I'm going to really dial in sort of how I'm going to skin that one. Also got the Hyrox World Championships
Just
in
about to
Nice
come
as
out.
well in June. So that's another amazing thing that I've done this year. It was
So
really cool.
you're competing in the pro?
Yeah, in the World Champions,
yeah.
So it'd be from all the competitions around the world. I think it was top 5 for our age category. So me and my friend Harry, we was in the top 5 for under 29s. So
Brilliant.
we managed to break that sub-hour barrier, which was what I was aiming for
great.
as well. And London was super competitive this year, so it was good to be a part of that group of people.
I've never done the Hyrox. I was one of my friends was coaching at it in the summer in Glasgow. Glasgow done it for the first time, and we were there spectating, and it looked
it's amazing.
It's
Electric,
amazing.
Isn't it?
It is. It's such a good setup, and the guys and girls that compete at it is
unbelievable.
And there's all levels. There is all levels. We were lucky enough to be there most of the day, so we've seen each category basically. There was some absolute bears, like really big, muscular
really
guys, and the way that they could move was unbelievable. You know, it's a good competition. It is. It's a good setup.
And I think as well, it's definitely up and coming, and I think it is surpassing things like CrossFit because there's no major sort of technical elements. There's no like Olympic lifting. It's all stuff that people, like you say, people can do, all abilities, and I think that's the beauty of it, that everyone gives it a go. And that's what it's about, just getting people out there and just training for some form of event. That's where you're going to get your motivation, your discipline from.
No, definitely. If there's a competitions up there, and you're right, it takes away that technical side of it. And you're seeing a lot of just mainstream gyms offering Hyrox training classes and stuff as well. It's the brand itself has done amazing, but quite rightly so. They've put a lot of work in it, and they've created a really good competition. We missed out your world record speed match attempt.
Oh, okay.
Because I just thought another marathon carrying 40 pounds and then running it in boots, and then I seen the time, I was like, you managed it in just over 4 hours.
So that was, again, I think I forgot to mention that was another starting point for me again in terms of what my body can actually do. So I remember it first coming out. It came out on our sort of daily orders that we get at work when I was sort of based towards Barnstable way, and I seen an orders and I was like, I fancy a bit of that, being part of this team. So I think we started with about 80 guys that wanted to be a part of this eight man squad. And it slowly got whittled down as time went on when we did the sort of training run. So we did a half marathon with 40 pounds, then it went to 22 miles with 40 pounds, and they were kind of like the sort of, it determined whether or not you were going to make the team or how consistent you are with your training. And we had a WhatsApp group going, and people would be constantly posting there all the time, and it makes you just want to get out there. Like, even though you trained already in that day, like someone's like, he's done an 18-mile run today, and to get out there, I'm slacking. And then I got the phone call one day. I was in Dubrovnik at the time with my friend. Like, I wasn't drinking because I was literally like an Olympic athlete almost. 8 months of solely training, and it was like, it meant so much to me as a young lad. And I got the phone call from Major Scotty Mills, who was running the team, really cool guy. And he was like, do you want to be part of the team? And I was just like, I was absolutely gobsmacked. And that was through London. So the record was previously held by 29 Commando like 20 years ago. So we set out at sort of 4:00 in the morning. Obviously he was setting the pace, Major Scotty Mills. And it was like 4 hours, 16 minutes, I think it was, in the end, carrying 40 pounds.
That must have been,
it was a real toll on the body, and I was seriously fit then. But in terms of like my running gait, it's not long as it is anyway because I've got short legs. But it was even shortened, so it was almost like a half step all the time. It was like speed march pace, it was like 10-minute mile pace. But that was just that catapulted me forward into all the other endeavours that I've sort of embarked on.
Just another one ticked off.
What
can I do now?
And again, anything else that comes out of that, I'm open to just anything. I'll give anything a go. Like,
Is your head just always busy?
Always busy, yeah.
Always busy.
I've got to move all the time.
It's a good way to be.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? There's a lot of time. I'm sure you rest up as well. So I'm going to release this podcast in the new year, the first one of season 2, and it'll be the time that everyone is hopefully looking for a bit of inspiration and getting their fitness and their health in order. A lot of people struggle at this time of year, and I still don't think that fitness and the outdoor is promoted enough in the mental health world. It's promoted by those who do it. It's not promoted enough by medical professions and counsellors and everything else. Do you know, what would you say to people who are looking for a new challenge? Whether that's just it doesn't need to be anything near what you've achieved, but whether that's to be to improve their mental health, lose a bit of weight, get fitter. Everyone's looking for the perfect moment, I think, to start something. But what would you say to these people that are just needing that
So push? I think in terms of like, to give yourself like discipline and motivation, I always find personally the best thing to do is set yourself a goal. Like, you can't train or strive towards something if you don't have a goal in mind. Otherwise we're just wandering aimlessly. So if you can find something, it could be anything. It could be your first 5K, or it could be your first marathon, whatever it may be. No matter how big or small it is, that's the first stepping stone to obviously progression onto different things. So I think just setting yourself a goal, it could be anything, any sort of form of fitness. Sign yourself up to something. It could be Hyrox or anything. Just sign yourself up to something, and then from there it'll get you out the door straight away. I can guarantee it, without a shadow of a doubt. That's what will motivate you to get out. Yeah,
there's a lot to be said for making that commitment, almost like putting the word out there.
Yeah,
nobody wants to be that guy or girl that says, I'm going to do this, and then they don't. Do you know what I mean? So make that commitment to sign up for something. And like you say, it could be as simple as a park run, a 5K, whatever it may be.
And another piece of advice, what I'd say to people, again, is don't do it for other people to prove to people that you can do it. Do it for yourself, because then that's the biggest reward. I don't do things for extrinsic rewards. It's not the way my mindset is. I do it for me. I do it to push myself and battle my demons. That's the best way to use that emotional sort of the traumatizing times that you've had in the past just to propel you forward. Don't do it for the wrong reasons to prove to people that you can do it, because end of the day, no one really cares. You're only doing it for yourself.
No, of course, no one actually does care. Everybody's too busy with their own life. But do you think that your fitness and what you do is a deliberate step to protect your own head?
Yeah, 100%.
Definitely.
That's why I go out for long runs. It clears the space, doesn't it? It resets yourself. You get the kick of endorphins after. It could be anything, a training session or a run or whatever it may be. Any form of fitness, it's going to give you that endorphin rush, and that's going to make you feel good, and it's going to put you in the right mindset to be productive with other aspects of your life, whether that be your work, your family, or whatever it may be. It's going to help you. It's got to. That's why it's so popular these days. Yeah,
definitely. Have you ever been unfortunate enough to have an injury or something that's prevented you from training?
So
have you always been able to do something?
I think I've always been able to do something, even with injuries. I think I'm always scared to admit that I'm injured, and I'll just battle through it. But it's not always the best case, and sometimes rest is the best medicine. And again, it's something that I still struggle with and always probably will do. I probably will never rest as much as I need to. But I think, having an injury or niggle, it really is a real setback. But there's always alternatives that you can find to keep your fitness up, or just keep the mind ticking over, and so you don't just sort of sat around sort of dwelling on mistakes that you've made in your training. But I think the most important thing is just being sensible with your training and just listen to the body. It's so easy to, we've all got these smartwatches now, and we're all sort of fixated. I'm a real sucker for it, my sleep patterns and stuff. But waking up one day and just feeling do you know what? I don't actually feel like training today, and don't, because that's your body telling you not going to. And again, I will speak for myself, it's something I need to do.
You need to take your own advice.
I'm just sitting here preaching. It's for me to say that, but it's definitely something I need to rest more, and I think everyone else does as well.
Definitely.
To prevent that injury.
So the future holds for you more charity work.
More charity work.
More huge self-inflicted physical challenges.
Exactly that.
We'll start to bring the podcast to a conclusion now, so feel free to speak about anything else that you feel that we've missed. But obviously, you're becoming a huge role model, and I'm not saying that lightly. Obviously, I made contact with yourself for that reason. I was amazed by the challenge, and then when I had a wee look at your profile and I seen some of the other things that you've achieved, it's amazing. And you're doing it for the good of the charity and the awareness as well. You'll be a role model to the recruits hundreds of recruits that you've seen through basic training, your PTI colleagues as well, and now obviously other people who have seen your endeavours on your social media. If you could be remembered for one thing, what would it be?
Probably for being a crazy bastard. Just being, like you say, someone who I just want to inspire the masses. It might sound really cliche, like everyone says it, but I think that is my main drive. It like I say, it could be anything, no matter how small or big it is. To someone, it's going to be a big thing, and I think just getting out there and getting it done for the right reasons is the main thing. I want to be remembered for being that person who's not afraid to fail, and also stays humble in success as well. I think it's an important trait that a lot of people should carry forward.
Yeah, definitely. Is there anything else that you want to?
I think that's it, David. Yeah. Otherwise, I'm going all day.
I was just looking at the clock. Thanks so much. I really appreciate you coming on. It's been great to chat to you.
Cheers, David.